groups and stuff. Anyway, I'm Lance Allen. Great. I'm Lance Allen. I'm the guitarist here today, and I'm going to talk to you about my guitar career a little bit and how I started a business teaching lessons and becoming a successful online Skype guitar instructor. In fact, I called myself the world's top Skype guitar instructor for a while because I taught in all 50 states and probably 30 different countries over the years. And in the last 2 years, I've become really successful with Spotify and streaming, and I'll get to that as well, and how I kind of developed that. But I want to play for you guys that are here, and you get to enjoy some guitar, and then I'll get into my history, okay? This first song I'm going to play is called Up on Cloud Street, and I wrote this for one of my students who I taught through Skype, who owned a sailboat. Well, he still owns a sailboat, and he took lessons from me, or with Skype on the sailboat, and his sailboat is named Cloud Street, so I wrote him a song. So that was my song, Up on Cloud Street. Wrote that for a guitar student of mine. When I was younger, of course, my music sort of thing just started out like many musicians. I had a parent that played music and played guitar. It was my dad, and he always, I never forget the guitar hanging up on the wall in his room, because I had to visit my dad on the weekends because my parents divorced, and he obviously inspired the music because of that guitar on the wall. And I'd sort of play it when laying on the bed when I was probably 9 or 10 years old, visiting my dad, and didn't know anything about it, or just knew that it vibrated, and my dad could play old-timey songs on it, that sort of thing. And anyways, I showed an interest probably around 11 years old. And his best friend was the local town guitar hero, Randall. And he was also, you know, he was in the rock lifestyle, so he liked his beer and things like that. And we actually started taking lessons with Randall, and that was my dad's best friend, and he taught me, you know, the beginning stages of the guitar. And it was like Nirvana. I wanted to learn Nirvana because I grew up in the time of, you know, Nirvana and Metallica and the whole MTV Unplugged sort of thing. And it was really cool to learn guitar around that time because I had a friend who also was learning guitar, and we kind of had a little competition going on. And in fact, I mentioned the guitar teacher liking beer. I think I paid $5 for an hour of lessons, and occasionally my dad would buy Randall a 6-pack for lessons on a Saturday morning at 9:30, and he'd start them that early. And anyways, I learned a lot from Randall. I learned how to play Stairway to Heaven, of course, and things like that early on as a young teenager. And not long after that, my mom had met another man, and he introduced me to a lot of music that I'd never heard of, stuff like Paul Simon and James Taylor and things like that. And we moved off to Ohio when I was a teenager. And there I really learned how to play guitar. I had a guitar teacher at a music store, and his name was Jimmy. And he showed me, you know, a lot of blues type of music. And he also got me into the fingerstyle guitar method, which is kind of like what you heard me play earlier, where I was playing with my fingers and hitting some bass notes and melody notes all at the same time with some rhythm and percussive ideas. And he let me borrow a cassette tape of a gentleman that played something, I believe it was like, and I thought that was cool. And I didn't have any idea how to play it, and Jimmy wrote it down on tab for me to learn. And of course, I learned it. And around that time, I was also playing stuff like from Eric Clapton. If you remember his Eric Clapton's Unplugged album, that was a big inspiration to a lot of young guitar players in the 90s. So that was about the time the internet came out, and I was printing off on my dot matrix printer tablatures of how to play these Eric Clapton songs. I didn't have enough money really to go buy the book from the music store. And of course, I downloaded. I still have those tabs in a folder somewhere. Like I kept them with tabs and stuff. And I was really particular about my guitar lessons when I took guitar lessons there. And I kept my scales organized and my chords organized. And I was one of those kids that actually practiced, and I'd show up next week with everything ready and memorized for my guitar teacher. So in that time, I probably was attending church at the time, and I taught a couple of people guitar because I basically used the methods that my guitar teacher used to teach a few of my friends how to play guitar. Not long after that, I did move to Kentucky, back to Kentucky, and I got involved in church and played guitar in a worship band, a youth worship band called the Antioch Praise Team, and we would, of course, I'd go there every afternoon. We'd play on Wednesday. I'd go there early so I could play guitar in the chapel and get ready to rock and roll for the worship service. And I also taught a couple of girls how to play guitar, you know, because I'm a guy, guitar, girls, that's kind of a fun thing, right? So I got the guitar lessons thing going, and I went to Eastern Kentucky University, still taught a couple of lessons there, and I was making money at that time, like maybe $10 or $15 just to kind of pay for meals here and there. And let's see, I transferred to MTSU to study the recording business. And there I started teaching guitar a little bit more. I probably had 4 or 5 students while on campus. And my friend Nathan here, he knows because we had some of the similar friends that were inquiring about taking lessons from me at the time. And I met a gentleman there at campus who owned a music store in Smyrna, which is just down the road from here, and that's where I live. And he invited me to come and teach guitar at his music store. And I graduated college at MTSU with a recording music degree, and I never did get into the recording business so much. I actually really aspired to be a session musician here in Nashville. That's why I came here, because I wanted to play on everybody's record. And during the time at MTSU, I played with artist Chris Young. You guys have probably heard of Chris Young. And him and I wrote songs together, and I played guitar for him. And he's famous now. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so he was like 16 when I played with him during that time. And back to this music store thing. I actually started working there selling guitars and working up front. I wasn't sure about teaching lessons professionally and full-time at the time. So I started selling guitars and guitar strings and whatever accessories, and I was working off a commission and learning the sales business. Not long after that, I was offered a teaching position, and it was like on Saturday mornings. And I had maybe 4 students to start off, and after the first month, all 4 students dropped. They were like, no more lessons, and I was a bit discouraged. So I kept working at the music store, just, you know, like a regular retail job, and eventually decided it was probably time for me to teach more, try it again, because the store owner was encouraging me to try to, you know, come back and teach lessons, because I guess he was having lots of inquiries for lessons at the time, and the 2 people that were teaching lessons there wasn't enough to accommodate all the potential customers who were coming in. So I took on a couple of nights, and then I was having fun with it, and was just goofing off with kids that wanted to learn to play the guitar. And I realized that music was fun, and it should be fun, so I sort of made the lessons fun, and I sort of developed my own lesson plan based off of what my teacher taught me, Jimmy, who used these chord stamps, and I actually ordered a chord stamp just like Jimmy's and did the same thing. I wrote out my lessons the same way Jimmy did it, and that's where it started. And I actually ended up working at that music store for almost 10 years. And I started to manage the store. I learned how to do the B2B type of stuff. I learned how to order music equipment from a distributor. I learned how to negotiate and sell things, and because I was making commission, and I was also teaching guitar there full time. I was there probably 60, 70 hours a week at this music store. Lots of work, and I thought I'd never get out, but after 8 years, 10 years, you kind of get burned out of the same job. So I was still teaching guitar there, and I started looking for opportunities, and I had a website. And by the way, at that time, as I was at the music store, I made an album of music called Sometimes in Life. That was probably around 2006. That was my first actual CD of music. And so I was working at the store, and I did this album as a side thing. Didn't think it would work out, but I did that. And I ordered 2,000 copies of CDs because I was really confident that I could sell 2,000 CDs. And I wasn't touring or anything. I, in fact, used the music store to sell my CDs on consignment. So the music store guy, he got some money off of my CD sales. And every time a customer would come in, I would sell them a CD. I would be like, hey, this is me, check this out. And they were always impressed with my guitar playing and that sort of thing. So Sometimes in Life came out, and then I kept teaching lessons, and then maybe in 2008 or so I did another album called Naturally, and I met a guy at the music store, and he was a recording engineer and offered his service to me, and I came in and I taught his son guitar, and he recorded me for my Naturally album. And my wife and I were coming home from Memphis on a trip, and we listened to Lightning 100's Music Business Radio. So I was getting all this business sense from the music store because the store owner was very encouraging, and he gave me books and business books and taught me stuff like that. Well, anyway, back to the Lightning 100. I was listening to Music Business Radio, and on there was Tim Westergren. Has anybody heard of Tim Westergren? No. Well, Tim Westergren is the guy that created Pandora Radio. And he was on Music Business Radio with David Hooper, who does that show. And he was interviewing them about what Pandora was going to be about. And he said, we're taking submissions for music and this sort of thing. And just look at our website and you can find an address to send your CDs to. And at the time I only had 2 CDs. First thing Monday morning, postmarking those CDs, send them to Pandora. I'm like, all right, I can get my music on an online radio station. People can hear it. I don't know if they're going to listen, or I don't know if I'll get paid for it. I don't know. But I'm going to do it anyway. So I sent my music in, and it took probably 9 months to get on Pandora Radio at the time, because they listen to every CD or every track that comes through, and they give all these different points about music. If it's a major key or a minor key, if it's fast or upbeat, and that's called their, I forget what it's called, but it's their the music genome, right? So every artist has a unique thing. And not long after that, I started getting emails from CD Baby, my music distributor at the time, and they were like, hey, you might want to sign up for Sound Exchange because you might have some royalties. And I'm like, yeah, right. I've been seeing all of my songwriter friends complain about their royalties from digital sources like Pandora. And this Spotify wasn't even around, and everybody was complaining about the Napster, because Napster was hosting music and people were supposedly stealing music and getting it for free there. And so I signed up for Sound Exchange. I was hesitant about it because it was a lengthy form and everything. And I just went through it anyways and got it all signed up. And my wife and I were about to celebrate a 10-year anniversary, and we booked a trip to Costa Rica. And by the way, I'd already quit the music store at this time and started my own music thing. I basically, when I left the music store, I packed my stuff up and went to an office space that I rented. I'd already prepared for that. I had a website, by the way, too. And I used keywording and things like that to reach out to the local people who would search on Google to find me. So I used search engine optimization to maximize my website at the time. Anyway, I like this story about the Costa Rica trip. So we decided we were going to Costa Rica in 2013 for our 10-year anniversary. It's going to be a big trip, and we didn't have the money for it. So I had a credit card. I was like, let's just have it put it on the credit card. It's okay. You know, not the Dave Ramsey way, but that's okay. Put it on the credit card, and we had a great time. And then got home from Costa Rica, and there was a check in the mail from Sound Exchange. And it was way more than what my trip cost. So I paid for my trip and had some money left over. And it was all because of Pandora and all because of my music being streamed on Pandora Radio for several years. So it accumulated over the years. So if there's an artist out there that's never signed up for Sound Exchange and they've been on Pandora for a while, they need to sign up for Sound Exchange and get their royalties. Things have changed though. I think it comes now directly through distributors, but that's how that went. So we paid for the Costa Rica trip, had this extra money to put in savings. We kind of broke even, got our heads above water. And I was really hustling at my own job. My Lance Allen studio was what I called it, my lesson studio. And that's kind of how I broke away from the music store. I sort of focused on Skype lessons instead of local lessons, so I wouldn't really compete with the local store. And I used YouTube as a way to reach out to students at the time. YouTube was a thing in 2006 and 2007, and Skype was a thing, barely a thing. It was brand new, and I used it to teach a friend in Malaysia who also played guitar, and we both communicated through Skype. I learned something from him, he learned something from me, and I said, I think this will work. So I created a page on my website that was specifically for Skype guitar lessons. And all this time I was using like a little business sense I learned from the music store and putting it into my own thing. And of course, I guess you could call it the School of Hard Knocks, because I had to try a lot of things out, and a lot of things failed and a lot of things succeeded. But after creating that extra little page for Skype lessons, I would put that link into all of my YouTube videos. So every YouTube, and I actually had maybe 600 videos at the time of instructional material, performances of my songs, or maybe product demonstrations of guitar-related things. That's another little thing that I do on the side as a part of my income as a musician. And I actually had one of my students do it, and I gave him $50 to go through my YouTube and copy and paste my website into all of my YouTube videos, because it was really time consuming, and I was like, I'm not going to do this. So it saved me some time, and I started getting Skype students. In fact, one of my lesson videos was on a Miranda Lambert song called The House That Built Me, and I taught the intro of the song, and I had a friend video me with a professional video camera and just the beginning of the song. And that video got several 100,000 hits, and I actually gained probably 10 or 20 students from that video because they wanted to learn the rest of the song. And I suggested to them through email, hey, why don't you sign up for lessons with me? That'd be great. So I ended up doing, and I set goals. One of my goals was to teach in all 50 states. So I wrote a blog post about, hey, I'm wanting to teach in all 50 states. And from that, I said, I'll even teach a free lesson if you live in, like Hawaii or Alaska, because who knows anybody in those places? I didn't really know anybody in those places at the time. Now the internet's bigger and we can find people easier. But so I taught in all those places, every 50 state, and all 50 states. And I did many countries as well. And that was all from the YouTube lessons, that sort of thing. Okay, I created another CD in the meantime called, what was it called? Melody Maker, number 3. No, Us Together is my 3rd CD. And at the time, Kickstarter came out, and I had seen a video of this lady named Amanda Palmer who did a video Kickstarter and earned like millions of dollars. I didn't think I could do the same thing, but she did this TEDx video about the power of asking. So I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a Kickstarter and ask people for money so that it'll pay for my project, and I'll break even. It'll be fun. And I had a successful Kickstarter project for the Us Together thing, and actually one of my guitar heroes actually contributed to my Kickstarter. It was amazing to me. You know, you log in and you say, hey, you're a guitar hero. I won't mention any names, but he popped in and said, here's this amount of money. And it was enough to, it was the biggest amount that anybody gave. So I had a real successful Kickstarter there, and had distributed it through CD Baby and got it all on streaming services and stuff. And they just sit there. It was in Spotify. I didn't even know about Spotify when it came out. Sorry if I'm rambling. I'm rambling. I'm going in the storyline. I'm going in the storyline. The CD came out. It's on all these places through CD Baby, the distributor. And one of my students at the time, the Skype student, by the way, I've been making this similar amount of money from Pandora each month that I made after the Costa Rica trip paid off. So I made X amount of dollars each month. And that increased my income. And my wife and I decided, oh, it's time to buy a new house. We've grown family. We've got 2 boys. And we had the income to do it, so we bought a bigger, newer house, not far from our house, not far from my office space, and it all worked out. So I was teaching a Skype lesson one Sunday morning, I think, or a Saturday, and one of my students there said, hey, you're on this new playlist on Spotify called Acoustic Concentration. I'm like, what? Playlist? Tell me what that is. I had no idea what that was. And Chris, my student, explained it to me, and I was like, am I going to get any money from it? He goes, you better. And I said, okay. And Chris is a lawyer, by the way. And he goes, if you don't get any money, let me know. So I was like, okay, I'll trust you. And I was on this Spotify playlist called Acoustic Concentration. And I signed up for Spotify, got an account. And I also, at the time, I think you could sign up and maybe look at data from Spotify called Spotify for Artists. But I'm not sure if it was a thing yet. And I could see like how many streams I was getting from the one song being on Acoustic Concentration. It was hundreds of thousands of streams for one song being on a popular playlist. And sure enough, I got a really nice paycheck 3 months away down the road. I was like, holy cow, I can't believe I got, I think it was $700 for one song being streamed on a major playlist. And I was surprised by that, and my wife was too. And I decided at that time, maybe a couple of months after that, I'm going to do another album of music that I haven't released yet, and it was called the Melody Maker. And I just did it like in one day. I did every song in almost one take with a guitarist named Richard Smith. He's a well-known guitarist and plays like Chet Atkins type of music. And I knew him from the Chet Atkins Appreciation Society here in Nashville. And I paid Richard to record me, and I did the songs really fast, and I had an album. I got manufactured CDs through a company called Oasis, and got 1,000 of them, sold them to friends and family. All I wanted to do, though, was get it on Spotify and see if I could maybe get another song on this Acoustic Concentration playlist. And I didn't know how to pitch or do anything like that to these playlists. And playlists, I found out, are like radio stations. They're pretty influential, or can be influential. So I did that. I created this album and put it on Spotify, and Pandora, and all these other places. And my song Melody Maker got on there. I'll play Melody Maker for you just a little bit. Pretty song, and it got put on this playlist with other pretty songs of acoustic guitar playing, real reverby, and just a real pretty song. It also got on that Acoustic Concentration playlist. It actually replaced the first song that I was on, that was on there. And gears started cooking. I was like, how does this work? Who is doing this acoustic concentration playlist? And I started telling people about my music that was on the Spotify, and I was screenshotting with my phone and posting on Instagram. And this gentleman, George Goodrich, reached out to me, and of course you think anybody that randomly reaches out to you is going to be a scam artist or something. And he's like, hey man, you should buy my book and learn how to get streams on Spotify. And I'm like, oh, that's, yeah, right. There's articles already out there about how to, increase streams on Spotify. I think CD Baby had put out an article about increasing your streams on Spotify and like making playlists and things like that. So I learned a great deal from the CD Baby post or article about that. And George sent me his book for free because I was skeptical. He's like, that's okay, man, just see what it's like. And then I read his book and I said, hey, there's some stuff in here that I'm gonna try. And it was stuff like reaching out to people on LinkedIn. So I went to LinkedIn. Everybody thinks LinkedIn's a dead tool, but it's not. I actually went to LinkedIn and looked for Spotify employees. And I found some. And I messaged all of them that connected with me on Facebook or on LinkedIn. And I sent them links to my Spotify account, introducing myself and introducing my music. I didn't think anything would happen. I would see their little picture pop down saying it would show that they actually read the post or whatever. And one gentleman actually read the post and replied back and said, hey, nice, thanks for sending. And then, never heard anything back. And at the time I was reading George's book or so, another playlist came out on Spotify called Peaceful Guitar. And that was a big playlist at the time. It like, when it first came out, it had several 100,000 followers like the first week. And there was all kinds of different artists on there that I knew. And the one artist that wasn't on there was me. I was like, why am I not on there? I'm the peaceful guitar player. All my music's kind of got that vibe to it. So I went back to LinkedIn and started pitching songs to these Spotify employees who may read my message or may not, only if they connected with me, right, on LinkedIn. They had to be connected for me to send the message. So the guy that actually responded to me, I actually sent him a message because I knew he might respond again. And of course he did. And I didn't find out until later that he was the influencer of one of my songs getting on Peaceful Guitar. So me doing that, me spreading the word and telling people, hey, my music is on Spotify. I'm telling people on Facebook. I'm telling people on my website. I'm telling people on Instagram and YouTube. I think that had an influence in one of my tunes getting put on the Peaceful Guitar playlist. And that playlist earned me like 3 times more than what acoustic concentration was earning me, which was incredible. So now I've got an income that I can pay my mortgage with just from streaming music. I'm still teaching guitar. I'm still doing YouTube videos. I've monetized all my YouTube videos, so I made a little money from that. And I also found this website called Fiverr. If you guys heard of Fiverr, where you can get cheap digital products or whatever. One thing that I did on Fiverr was I sold videos of me singing Happy Birthday with the ukulele. It was just kind of a fun, quirky thing. And I made a goal to be able to buy a really nice Comica ukulele. It's a handmade ukulele in Hawaii. And it's like $1,200. So I made a goal. I'm going to do so many birthday greetings that I can afford this beautiful ukulele. And within about 6 months of pushing hard and advertising on Facebook, I made enough money and sang enough happy birthday videos to buy the ukulele. And I wrote that goal in my office. I actually have a goal list in my office, and my students see me write my goals. I still teach guitar, and I sometimes will make my goals out in front of my students because I feel like that's an important thing for them to see so that they can also maybe do the same thing. So here I am inspiring students to do this sort of thing. And I write my goals down, and they see, how are you doing on your ukulele? And I told them that they were all excited when I sang enough happy birthdays to reach that. And oh boy, as I was learning about the Spotify thing, one of the guys, I started researching playlists on Spotify, so I'll tell you now how I did this. I found out that I needed to be on all these individual playlists on Spotify. Everybody can create a playlist on Spotify. Spotify creates playlists. Those are called the editorial playlists. Those are the ones that are hard to get on. But people like you guys, if you have a playlist, I could find you on Facebook if your picture is up there, and I would say, hey, here's my music, you've got a similar playlist, would you like to check it out and possibly add it to your music? So that's what I did. I actually set aside about an hour a day to sit on my laptop and look stuff up on Spotify. I would look up sleep playlist, right? Because my guitar music was kind of sleep related. And I would look up travel music. I would look up music in the background. I would look up music for students, music for college. I would put all these keywords into Spotify and see if I could get in touch with the Spotify person or the user that created that playlist. And I would seek them out on Facebook and friend them and send them a little message that I wrote out. It was a personalized message. I never really copied and pasted. I tried to be personalized every time so that it wouldn't appear spammy or something like that. And reached out to a lot of people that way. In fact, I think 1,000 people. I think I emailed or messaged over 1,000 people after a while. And that really increased a lot of my Spotify streams outside of the Peaceful Guitar playlist. And that may have increased, I was doing that at the time I got on Peaceful Guitar, so that might have helped with my addition to the Peaceful Guitar playlist. And not long after doing some of that, another song got added to the Peaceful Guitar playlist. So I'm kind of trying to, oh, that one was cool. Okay, so here's the story here. I listened to the Peaceful Guitar playlist, and all of the guitar songs on there were nylon string guitar, so a classical guitar, kind of had a real soft sound. And I decided I'm going to just record something I've been tinkering with and on my nylon string guitar. So I grabbed that guitar that was on my dad's wall. I still have it, and I put new strings on it. In fact, I don't think I put new strings on it. And I used GarageBand to record something in my living room and one microphone. And usually you use two microphones when you record a guitar. It's stereo image, most people like that. But I used one microphone, and GarageBand, of all programs, not professional, it comes installed on the computer. And I recorded my song called Raining Slowly. And I found a new distributor called DistroKid, and I was going to try them out. I thought, I'm going to submit my song through DistroKid and see how it goes. It was basically a yearly fee, and I could upload as many songs as I wanted. So I felt like that would be a useful tool for me. And I uploaded Raining Slowly on a Tuesday, the same day that I recorded it, and I took my guitar out in the grass and it got some humidity on it, and took a picture of it, and I used an app on my phone to put a title on it in my name, and uploaded it to DistroKid. And on Thursday, I woke up and I looked at my Spotify data, and that song had like 10,000 streams on it, and that was the first day that it went out. I was like, holy cow, my song's got like 10,000 streams. This is the first day. What did I do? I didn't know it was on Peaceful Guitar until my friend Dennis, who was also on Peaceful Guitar, said, hey, is your song Raining Slowly? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, your name's next to it. It's on Peaceful Guitar. So I went to Peaceful Guitar, and I, of course, was excited that another song got on Peaceful Guitar. And that was exciting, and it stayed on there, and it's still on there. That's probably been 18 months now that it's been on there, or a little more than a year, as well as the first song we got on there called Rest Your Way Home. It's a really beautiful song. I'll play it for you so you get an idea. Rest Your Way Home. The Raining Slowly one, it sounds like this. That's a real nice. It's just slow, out of time. In fact, when I recorded it, you could, if you listen really carefully, you could hear my refrigerator in the background, just humming along. And it may have not been in perfect tune, but it was almost like just a spur of the moment thing when I recorded that. I was just doing it. It was improvised. I didn't even write it out or anything like that. It's got on the playlist, and I actually wrote out the tablature for it in music notation, and put it on my website with all my tablature music for sale, which is $5 a tab, and I actually sell lots of tabs off of my website. And all that is usually from YouTube, because I'll link it to my website. Here's where you can get a tab, $5. Basically, you're buying me a cup of coffee. You guys don't know me. Nathan knows me a little bit. I'm a big coffee enthusiast. And so I'm always telling people, hey, if you're gonna, if you like my video, buy me a cup of coffee. I've seen other people do it with beer and other things, but coffee's my jam. So people bought me coffee through buying tablatures, right? And that's kind of my story there with the whole Spotify thing. Let's see what I got here.
So I have a question for you,
Yeah.
Lance. You started off with Nirvana.
Nirvana.
How did you end up with just peaceful acoustical music? I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big change.
That was probably due to, I should tell you, that was probably due to some inspirational guitarists I discovered while in church, Phil Keggy being one of them. And he was probably my first inspiration to that style of guitar. Of course, my guitar teacher who introduced me to the finger picking method.
Yes.
And I really liked the Phil Keggy stuff. And actually, I think I was on a CD mailing catalog where you get CDs in the mail. And I ordered 5 of his CDs and just really enjoyed them. And I went to see Phil Keggy at a concert. It was like a all-star guitar night, I think, which had other guitarists involved. And there I discovered guitarist Tommy Emmanuel, who knocked my socks off. In fact, he played a Beatles song like this. With both the melody and the bass. And I was just like, holy cow, I gotta learn how to do this. So at that time I was buying his tablatures and trying to figure out his music, as well as Phil Keggy. And I got involved in the Chet Atkins Appreciation Society. And that's probably where a lot of my finger picking guitar came from. Chet used this whole thumb picking style, that sort of sound. Right? And I don't play like that style often, but at the Chet Atkins convention I would play like that because that's how everybody plays. They put a thumb pick on, and that's so a lot of my finger picking guitar stuff came from the Chet Atkins convention. And yeah, so that's where I got into that style of guitar. I don't know where all the music comes from, but it's usually inspired from something, like from my wife or my kids, or maybe I wrote songs for some of my students that were inspiring to me and just fun to hang out with. And that's probably that, yeah. In fact, I forgot to mention that another thing that helped my Spotify was doing cover songs, because these distributors made it quite easy for us to do licensed songs and get them put on Spotify, and then I wouldn't have to worry with finding contracts or things like that. I just do it through the distributor. And my first song was Mad World, and I actually did that. I did a Gary Jules version of that song, and it's done on piano, but I did it on guitar. I don't think I can play it. If you remember that little piano sound. Oh, there it goes.
Something like that.
A violinist that I recorded with on my String Poet album, which was my last full-length album, and I hired a cellist and a violinist because I wanted a little more music in there other than guitar. And that's where I met Avery Bright, who he's an incredible violinist, and I hired him to do some other cover songs with me. He was on the Mad World that I released, and the reason why I wanted to do cover songs was there's a Spotify playlist called Instrumental Pop Covers. I thought that'd be another way for me to get streams. And there's a whole section I forgot to tell you guys about is collaborations, because that has done well for me. The violinist and I had created a group called Alan and Bright. Since I hired him, we become friends. And now we release music together under Alan and Bright. And last year we did a Christmas album, and we did a Kickstarter, and we included, one of our rewards was coffee. Because guess what? I'm a coffee guy, and Avery, he's into bacon, and he loves Benton's bacon. So, I know, right? One of our rewards was coffee and bacon. So we had a successful Kickstarter project where we created a CD and an actual vinyl. It's a beautiful red vinyl, and it's Christmas Volume 1, and we're going to do another Christmas album as well because we needed to target that market for streams. That's one thing that I didn't have was Christmas music, so I worked with the violinist to do the Christmas album. And in fact, the other day on Facebook, I'm like, I can't believe I did a vinyl. That's like what my parents listened to when they were kids, but it's actually a thing. People are listening to them all the time now. And I've been creating cover songs quite a bit since I started getting, I developed a relationship with the guy that started the instrumental pop covers. It wasn't an editorial playlist, it was a guy who lived in Mexico City, and I FaceTimed with him one time and said, let's meet for coffee. I'd love to tell you about what I'm doing, and I'd love to hear about your business too, and what you do. And that's how I build relationships with people. I read that book called How to Make Friends and Influence People, and any of your students need to read that, or anybody you can encourage, because there's so many great techniques in that book on how to influence people, and that's what I did. Also, another book that influenced me was the 10X Rule by Cardone. He's kind of a crazy guy on the internet, but his book inspired me to put in more effort than I was putting in, and the more effort you put in, the more results you get out of it. And I also started following the Gary Vaynerchuk, who does the Crush It. And in fact, I should have been in his book called Crushing It, which came out a couple years ago. And it was basically a lot of other people who are working hard to succeed in their career. And then I eventually listened to the first book, which was nice, but a little dated. And I created all those pop covers for them. I did one by Oasis called Wonderwall. And because, you know, I love Wonderwall, I taught it to all of my students, but not this way. So I did a song like that. I did all these cover songs were a little bit unique. They weren't exactly strumming the guitar with the melody playing. It was like fingerstyle guitar done in a new kind of way. And that actually took off, the cover song. So I'm continually releasing cover songs. And right now I have like a song per week released as singles, because I'm not really doing albums at the moment. I will release a covers album eventually, and then I'll be able to maybe take advantage of the editorial department at Spotify again. So singles is kind of where it's been at for me, and some of them have been originals, and recently I did 5 very peaceful classical guitar style songs on a guitar that I borrowed from my friend Django. It was a Martin guitar from 1867, so it was 152 years old. And so I'm using that story to kind of hopefully impress somebody at Spotify to get another ad onto that peaceful guitar playlist. Avery and I, we actually were on peaceful guitar with a cover song called Gravity by John Mayer, and I did sort of a fingerstyle version of it. Remember recording that? It was hard because it's a swinging 6th rhythm, and I had a hard time recording it. In fact, the first time we recorded, I said, I can't do this. And I left. I was like, we didn't record it at that time. And then, by the way, Nathan records all of my music over here. And I came back like a week later and felt a little more confident to do it. And I did it. And then I was going to record it with a piano player. The gentleman who was in here earlier, he managed that guy, and his name was Nico, and he played a lot of cover songs. And he sent me a track with piano on it. It didn't quite match with the guitar. And I said, well, let's just figure out another song for us to do. And I sent the Gravity track to Avery, and he put just a nice little violin part, call and response. And he was actually recording with Dolly Parton on a Monday morning in a studio when I got a message from a guy in Sweden who I connected with and said, Lance, congratulations, your Gravity is on Peaceful Guitar playlist, because it's a big deal to get on this playlist. And I messaged Avery, because we actually partnered up at that time, and we were going to split the royalties on that. And I messaged him, and he said, that made his day better than playing for Dolly Parton. And I was like, that's amazing. And so think that wraps up about how I've succeeded in Spotify. If Music Man over there has any questions about it, I can answer.
Did you ever use other social media like Facebook or Instagram?
Like, oh, definitely Instagram and Facebook. In fact, Spotify now allows you to use, when you share a song, you can send it to Twitter, Facebook, email, Instagram stories. So I use that all the time. And I use hashtags to find other potential listeners. And with Facebook marketing now, you can actually target market to people that might like your music. For me, I would build some Facebook ads, $1 a day. It wouldn't be about all I would spend on Facebook ads. And I would target market people that listen to all these other artists that are on Peaceful Guitar. And hopefully those people would hear my music and become a follower on my Spotify page. Therefore, each week they would get my song that I release in the release radar. So that's what I'm doing now, is building followers on Spotify. If you don't follow me on Spotify, you can scan the code, or you can just find me by typing in my name.
And artists, do you watch for like backup? In research, there's a lot of research done on when you release, say, a second album or a third album, the spillover effects on your first album or prior albums.
Sure.
Are you able to keep up with the spillover effects from, you had Gravity on Spotify, does that impact your previous stuff that you put out there?
All the old stuff is new to somebody who's not heard it before.
Exactly.
So in fact, the Restoration song that was the first song I added to Peaceful Guitar, that was on my third album.
Yeah.
And I'd released already, I think, 4 or 5 at that time. So it was kind of cool to see an older song. In fact, before that, another song, the first song that was on there was from the second album. And I'd already put out 7 more albums. So somebody discovered it, which was cool to see.
What about touring? Do you have any desire to tour?
I don't have to tour. I can just, I know I've got a family, I have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old, so it's nice to be at home and I can create music. And I have a lessons business that I haven't been teaching as much, but I still have students that I need to tend to. And eventually, maybe, when my kids are a little older, I'll do some touring. But it's very expensive to tour, one thing. And I feel like I'm not famous enough to have a draw for a bunch of people. As you can see, look, yeah. So you guys are great to come and hang out.
There's 5 people on Facebook Live as well.
That's all right. You'll see. Oh, thank you, Facebook Live. There'll be more people to watch.
Well, so for example, one of your heroes said, hey, come out with me for a month.
That would be cool. I would be open to that. Yeah. I'd love to be a supporting act to Tommy Emmanuel, or even better, like a songwriter, or say there's like Rodrigo and Gabriella. Have you guys ever heard of that group? I would be a good support act to someone like them, because they do something a little different than I do. And maybe even like the a cappella group that does the instrumental or the singing. What's their group? The Pentatonics.
Yeah.
Avery and I would be a really good opening for something like that. We've never really explored that, but maybe in the near future, there'd be an opportunity for us. I just don't want to be gone 5 weeks at a time, that kind of thing. It's hard on family, and family is first for me. So.
Play one of your covers, Lance.
Cover.
Like the Boulevard of Broken Dreams, or.
So we're doing a Green Day song next with a guitar player from Australia. He's moved over to the U.S. to kind of tour and try to figure out the music world. And we're doing a Boulevard of Broken Dreams that sounds like this. If I can remember it. Yeah. He's kind of more of a, what I would call a contemporary guitarist that plays a lot of open tunings and percussive elements, which I don't get into so much, but what's cool is to play, I would be considered more of a traditional guitarist, and putting the two of us together kind of made a neat mix. But yeah, we're doing that one. I've also done Wake Me Up When September Ends. Great day. So, if you're not following me on Spotify, go do that and enjoy my music. There's lots of it on there. Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, you.
Thank you.
Person in the hall.
How long did it take you to do the bass and melody finger pick?
That's just a lot of years of practice, I
A lot
guess.
of years.
Yeah.
Did you first start out doing that, or?
No.
did you pick?
The first thing I kind of learned was the bass. That Chet Atkins style. And then as I progressed, I just sort of like, each chord, of course, has its own bass note, a root note, or a third, or whatever. I've tried to tinker with many, many, many cover songs. Thanks for coming by.
One day I'll have to check out some of your videos. I played guitar many years ago, and I haven't played in years.
Yeah.
So
There's over 1,000 on there now,
so I'll have to check out some. of
shoot me a
those.
message. I'll guide you to the right
And
one.
help me figure out how to get my fingers
Everyday
back
practice.
into how to,
Everyday practice.
how to get rid of the blisters and those things that come in.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to learn how to finger pick. I started out using just picks.
Right. Some people do the